what's in this big, beautiful bill? Well, for one thing, big cuts to health care for millions of Americans. It goes right after Medicaid. It would slash Medicaid by hundreds of billions of dollars. What that means is over 10 million Americans will lose their health care if this big, beautiful bill becomes law. Now, I guess they say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That doesn't look very beautiful to me, that millions of Americans are going to lose their access to care. Now, you might say, well, I'm not on Medicaid. Why should I be concerned about it? Well, number one, you should be concerned for your neighbor who is on Medicaid. But even if you're not, that hospital down the street depends on Medicaid. And if that hospital can't get Medicaid funding, it just may close its doors. It may close completely, or it may close its labor and delivery. A lot of hospitals are shutting down their labor and delivery, or they might shut down their emergency room. So that Medicaid funding is essential to healthcare overall, for all of us. So that's the biggest thing to know about this bill. But it also cuts what are called SNAP benefits, food benefits. This helps feed kids at school with the free and nutritious lunch program, but it also helps lots and lots of families that would otherwise go hungry. Millions of families will go hungry if these massive cuts to SNAP go through. And that's going to mean millions of kids in America don't get a next meal. They're going to be hungry because of this bill. But the third thing you should know about this bill is what's it all for? And what's it all for is to raise the money by taking it from food, by taking it from healthcare, and giving a great big tax cut to billionaires. If you're wealthy, you're going to get over $250,000 tax cut every year. If you're poor, you're actually going to get a tax increase out of this bill. So the benefits are heavily weighted to the wealthiest Americans, and they're taking it from families that are hungry, and they're taking it from families that will lose access to health care. One other really big thing to know about this bill, and that is it will skyrocket our deficit and debt. Don't believe the Republicans who are claiming that it will pay for itself. They never pay for themselves. No, this is going to raise $2 to $3 trillion of debt. It's going to increase the debt by that much. We already have a very significant debt and deficit problem, such that the nation's credit rating has gone down, and there are concerns that if this bill goes through and explodes our deficit and debt further, it's going to mean a further degrading of our bond rating, which is going to mean more you're paying in interest rates on your credit cards, more on your interest rates for your home and your mortgage. These are going to be the consequences of making the deficit and debt situation that much worse. But that's not all, because there's a bunch of other stuff that was thrown into this bill that some of the people who voted on it are claiming, well, they didn't even know.
Congresswoman, you say in full transparency you didn't know that this was in there, and now you're shining a light on it. How did you not know that it was in there, and how'd you find out about it?
Well, we don't get the full bill text until very close to the time to vote for it. And so that was one section, that was 2 pages that I didn't see.
Now, here's Elon Musk and what he's had to say about this bill. He calls it a pork-filled, massive, disgusting abomination. He said he could no longer hold his tongue on just how bad this bill was. And what's more, he goes on to say, and the Republicans who voted for it, they knew better, and essentially they should be ashamed of themselves. Now, some of the Republicans, contrary to what Elon Musk said, are claiming ignorance. Here's Michael Flood claiming that he didn't know a provision was in the bill that would make it harder to enforce court orders. Here's the town hall with Republican Representative Mike Flood.
Can you please tell us why you voted to approve a budget bill that includes Section 70302, which effectively prohibits federal courts from enforcing contempt orders? Please let me ask my question. I only got 30 seconds. Which would then allow current and future administrations to ignore those contempt orders by removing the enforcement capabilities.
I do not agree with that section that was added to that bill. This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill.
Okay, next question. Next question.
I am not going to hide the truth.
Okay, so that provision that he's talking about there, or he's being asked about there, was a provision that essentially would try to stop judges' ability to hold the president or the administration in contempt when they violate court orders. Because what it would require is that someone suing to prevent the government from doing harm has to pay a big bond in case their temporary restraining order or permanent injunction is later reversed. What this means as a practical matter is that the court actions that have held Donald Trump accountable, that have stopped illegal things from happening or tried, cases like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, where the court is finding the president and the administration in contempt, the courts would lose much of their power to do it because people couldn't afford to bring these cases. So this is an effort to essentially neuter the judiciary branch, the one branch of government that has been willing to stand up to this lawless administration. That is also in this big, what I would call ugly bill. But there's some other pork provisions and terrible provisions in the bill. One of them is a provision on silencers. That's right, on silencers for guns. So if you're going to get a silencer, you want a silencer for your weapon, you have to pay a stamp fee. It's about $200. That fee was set like 90 years ago when it was a lot of money, and it then kept a lot of people from getting silencers. Now it's a pretty small fee to pay, but what's more, it prevents you from having to register to get a silencer. It's going to just proliferate the number of silencers. Now, what's the problem with this? It makes it so much easier to hide crimes because you can't tell where the shots came from. It's going to make it more lethal when mass shooters use these to hide where they are. It's going to take first responders longer to be able to identify the source of the gunfire. It's going to mean more people losing their lives. So this is that big, ugly bill. Tax cuts for really rich people, so if you're super wealthy, you're going to do just fine here. It includes massive cuts to healthcare, might result in that clinic down the street closing or that hospital closing, your friend, your neighbor losing their health care, maybe you lose your health care. Less food for hungry people, less sales of food by farmers to schools for school lunches, and it's going to explode our deficit and debt.
Do you agree with Senator Schiff's take on the big, beautiful bill, or do you see it differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.